Hey, welcome. And in this video, we are going to go over conversational appointment booking using Vapi and 𝐻𝐽.com. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Justin, and I like to create videos just like this to show you exactly how I solve problems for me and my clients inside my business and their business. If you're not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. I've noticed that most of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed, and I ask you that if you want to see more content like this and support the channel, I ask that you smash that subscribe button. Also, all this information I provide here to include the N8N workflow and any other JSON or copy pastable resources will be located in my free school community automation station. I will include the link down below in the description. So if you just want a shortcut, download it and upload it into your N8N instance and follow along while you're watching this video, which I highly recommend you do. You can hop in the school community and download it from there. Without further ado, let's hop into this. One thing I want to highlight here is, and I've highlighted this in a few of my other videos, I'm going to do my best to keep AI out of this workflow because I have noticed that there are a lot of people putting AI nodes inside the workflow, which is very powerful, but I think they're putting it in there in the wrong times. And a lot of times it's to account for formatting of specific data before they send it out to the API, which doesn't necessarily require AI, okay? And so just because you can do it with AI doesn't mean that you should do it with AI. Whenever you introduce AI into the workflow, you're introducing cost into your company or potentially your client's company. It's also unpredictable. It relies on the LLM, it relies on your prompting skills, and any change potentially by the LLM provider like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google can affect the performance of that specific node. Lastly, it also introduces latency into the workflow, which means it takes longer to execute, and any dead space in a call creates the opportunity for the call to go awry, for the caller to get weirded out, maybe say something, interrupt the agent, and it can just spiral downhill pretty quickly. Us humans conversate pretty dynamically. We think really fast, we respond really fast, and so you want to try to emulate that in your voice AI call. So without further ado, let's hop in. The first thing we're going to do here is I have one already built, but we're actually going to build one from scratch because I find that it's easier to show you how to do that. So there's two functions we're going to build inside of Vapi, and that's get open slots, essentially query the calendar to determine if there are any open slots. And then also we are going to be able to book appointments. All right, so those two functions are extremely important and are necessary for appointment booking. So let's hop into the voice API. Actually, before we do that, I want to create a webhook trigger because we're going to need to copy the webhook address. And so what you want to do here is just search for webhook and use the one with the little lightning bolt next to it. That means it's a webhook trigger. And we're going to come here, and for the method, we're going to select post. And for the response, we'll leave it as immediate for now, but we're going to change that. I'm going to go ahead and click copy, and I'm going to copy this down on a scratch pad that I have here on my other screen. Next thing we're going to do, we're here inside of our Vapi dashboard. We're going to navigate to the tools section. I have nothing created here, so we're going to create this from scratch, and we're going to create tools and then create a function. And in here, we are going to name this get open slots, and the description is query the calendar for availability or available slots. Just a brief description. You can be more descriptive in here if you'd like. I don't think it would hurt it, but you just don't want to use all 1,000 characters. There's no reason for it. So if you come down here to options, we're going to leave that default. And then under parameters, I'm going to show you a little trick here, and you can download this. Instead of going through and adding these manually, it just would take time in the video. I'm going to copy and paste from a notepad that I have here. I'll also make these available for you to download inside of the school community. So don't worry, you won't feel left out. But let's go ahead and switch this to JSON. I'm going to delete everything that's in here and paste and make sure that's in there correctly. And awesome, we're going to apply this. And then I'm going to toggle off the JSON just so we could see it in the visual editor, and we'll go through it together. So right here, we have these parameters that were created via that JSON, just a quick copy and paste. If I hop in here, we're just passing over the name of the caller, passing in the caller's time zone in a specific format using the 𝐼𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬 standard time zone database. I think the 𝐻𝐽.com API recognizes this format, and so we just want to make sure it's formatted before it goes to N8N, and that's one of the ways that we prevent having to use AI inside of the workflow. And right here, what else do we have? We have the email address, and I don't have email address marked as a required field in this tool. And that is because I don't need it just yet. So for getting open slots, I don't necessarily need the email yet. So I'm not going to make it a required field, but inside of the book appointment tool, we are going to ask for it to be a required field. And lastly, we're asking for the requested appointment in a specific format. So let's see if we can get away with this format. We'll reference the documentation here in a second to see if it will work. So here, this is where we copied our webhook address. And so if you don't remember, right over here, we're just copying that test webhook address right now and pasting it inside of the server settings. And that should be it. Let's go ahead and click save. And then next thing we're going to do is create another tool, and that is the book appointment tool. So let's name it. And then use to book appointments on the calendar. All right. And then for the parameters, we're going to switch to JSON. And let me pull up my notes here so I can just copy and paste this JSON. Awesome. And then apply back to the visual editor. So let's check out the parameters that were created by us pasting this JSON. So we have the name, which is required. We have the time zone, which is required. And this time you notice this little red asterisk next to the email. That's because the email is required this time. And then the requested appointment slot is also required. So we're going to go ahead and click save. And I did not paste the webhook URL. So let me go back in here and paste that and click save one more time. Awesome. So we've created the tools. Now the next thing we need to do is make sure that the assistant that we have has access to those tools. So let me pop into assistants. I have a demo assistant here. I'll explain in a second what it's doing, but I just went to the tools section and selected the two tools that I just created, book appointment, get open slots, and then we will just click publish. Now, inside here, we have a generic prompt. I'm not going to focus too heavily on prompting in this video because everybody's going to have a different application of their voice AI assistant. But what I did want to do here is provide you an example of just what it takes to book an appointment. Now, the most confusing part of this whole thing here is probably these first two lines. And this first line is nothing but a description, a headline. But these values inside of these double squiggly brackets is essentially what's called a dynamic variable that's provided by the voice API. And all this is doing is giving Vapi the current time, because AI really has no relativity to time unless we give it time. So this in the curly brackets is going to be automatically filled in with the time at which the call is happening. And for example, if you say something, or if the caller says something like, I want to book an appointment for tomorrow at 2, then it knows what to relate that statement to. Tomorrow at 2, if today's April 15th, then tomorrow's the 16th at 2 o'clock. And then we provided the time zone in here. If you're confused about what this is, you can come over here to the help docs, you pull up the documentation, and then if you just search, I think you could search current time, and then click on default variables, scroll down closer towards the bottom, you see the now variable, and then you see the line that I have in there with the specific time zone. So if you're ever confused, you can go in there. All right, so let's go ahead and publish this, make sure that's good to go. And what we can do is we're going to make a test call and we're going to ask it to get open slots, because we want to receive data here in our N8N workflow so that we could begin to build out the workflow that we actually need. So I'm going to go ahead and listen for test events here, and I will make a test call.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin, and I'd like to check if you guys have any open slots for tomorrow at 2 p.m.
I'll check the available slots for you. Could you please provide me with your email and time zone?
Yeah, my email is justin@example.com, and my time zone is Eastern Standard Time Zone.
Give me a moment. It looks like there are no available slots at 2.
Awesome. So all we needed is this message to get sent, which was the webhook whenever it requested open slots. And so we have some data to work with now. I'm going to go ahead and pin this data inside of N8N so we can continue to build out the workflow with this data. Let's come over here and just look at what was sent over. So you see here we have tool calls. We have a tool call ID. We have the get open slots function was called. It passed over our time zone. It passed over our requested appointment and my name and the email address I provided. Now, what we're going to do here first is we're going to create an element here, a node called set variables. We're going to name it set variables. And what I want to set here is, I'm referencing notes here. So what I'm going to set here is two things. So first thing I want to set is the username for our 𝐽.com instance. And we're also going to set the event type slug. So these are two pieces of information. I'm going to show you exactly where to get them here in a second, but these will differ. The reason why we're setting these here is because these values are going to be used over and over again inside of the workflow. And so if you take this workflow and you want to deploy it for yourself or potentially deploy it for a client, instead of having to go into every single one of the API calls and change it in the right place, you just change it in one place and you should be good to go. So what you're going to do here is go into 𝐽.com. And so if we come into 𝐽.com, log in, and wherever you have your calendars brought out, just pop open whichever calendar you want to book them on. And so if you just click the preview link here, right up top, and actually it's going to be hard to see because you won't have access to my URL bar, but essentially right here you'll see, let me zoom in so it's easier to see, 30-minute meeting /leadbrain. That's your username. Yours is not going to be leadbrain, obviously. And then you have /30min. And that's for me, my 30-minute calendar. And so that will be your event type slug. And so if we come over here into our workflow for the username, we're going to type it in exactly as it appears, lead-brain. And then for the event type slug, it's 30min. And so I'll just go ahead and type in 30min and exit out of here. Now, the next thing we want to do is create what's called a switch node. And the switch node is essentially going to recognize which tool is being called. And because we use the same webhook for both tools, we need to be able to split the logic, essentially split the path of where the information is going to go based on the tool name that's being called. And so what we'll do here is we will execute this previous node so that we have data that we can work with, and then pop in here. And we're going to evaluate a specific field called the name, the function name. And so if I just drag and drop that into the top there, and I essentially want this path to be getOpenSlots. So if the function name equals getOpenSlots, then go down the getOpenSlots path. I'm just renaming that so it's organized. And then we're going to add another routing rule, and we're just going to drag this function name over again. And then instead of getOpenSlots this time, we're going to come over to our tools and make sure we get the spelling correct. So book appointment is going to be the name of that function whenever it's time to book an appointment. And we will make the output name book appointment. So now we have two paths that this can take. So let's go ahead and test this node. It should move us. Yep, you can barely see it, but it moved us over to the getOpenSlots section. And that's exactly what we wanted to happen. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put another set field here, similar to what we use to set variables, but this time we're going to set the start and the end time of our appointment. So we're going to getOpenSlots essentially from the date and time they requested all the way up to 24 hours after. So we're just going to return a bunch of open slots just in case the one that they asked for is not available. We can suggest other open slots that are near the one that they requested. And so let's go ahead and create that. We'll rename this start and end time. And over here, what we'll call this is start. And if I come over here to the string and I look in the webhook, we see that one of the parameters that we sent over and that we requested was mandatory when we created the tool was requested appointment. And so if I just drag and drop this there, you'll see that the requested appointment is now populated. Now, for the end time, this is going to get a little tricky. So we're going to do some formatting, pay close attention. And so what we want to do is essentially add a day to this date. Now, in order to do that, we need to actually transform this string of characters and numbers into what's called a date object, okay? Bear with me. It's super easy to do. So we're going to go ahead and drag the requested appointment in here again, which is the same one as the start time. But this time, what we're going to do is put a dot and then you see this suggested to date and time. This will turn this into an actual date and time object inside of N8N. You don't need to be worried about, you don't need to understand too much exactly like what that means. There's a brief description here, but just follow me here. So to date and time turns it into a date and time object. And now what we can do is we can use the plus function. And for the plus function, what we can do is add 1, comma, and then the unit should be day. Is it day or days? Let me see. Sorry, you have to include that in quotes, days. Cool. So now we have the 1, comma, and then in single quotes, I put days, and you could see here it added a day to my request. So the original start time was the 16th, and the added start time, or the end time, is now the 17th. So just to review this, so all we did was we drag and drop requested appointment, we added a period, and we said to date right here. This is the to date function, so we turned it into a date option, and then we added a day using this notation. So once that's done, let's go ahead and save that, make sure it outputs the data that we want. And so now we have a start time and an end time. Perfect. That's exactly what we needed. You see here it added some milliseconds afterwards. I think we'll be fine keeping it just like this. However, if it's a huge deal, we can add milliseconds to this one if we wanted it to look congruent. And then let's see if I test this step. There it is. So we added milliseconds, but I actually don't think it's going to break it. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the to date object on the first one, and we should be good to go. So we'll test it. If we run into issues, we will troubleshoot accordingly. So next thing we want to do is actually create the API call to get open slots. And so if we come into the API documentation for 𝐻𝐤.com, first things first, we're going to need to authenticate. And to do that, we need an API key. And so if we come into our 𝐻𝐤.com dashboard and come down to settings, and then down to API keys, I am going to add a API key, and I'm going to call it YouTube test. Will expire in 7 days, sure. And this API key, you want to copy it off before you close this because it might just disappear forever, and you shouldn't share it the way I'm sharing it. I will go ahead and delete this once I'm done with this video, but keep that secure because that's going to actually give access to your 𝐻𝐤.com account. So we'll click done here, and then we're going to use that here in a second. But before we do that, let's hop in here and let's search the API documentation for slots. And let's see. I think get all bookable slots between a date and time range. I think that's what we want. And so if you come in here, you see the slots endpoint. And what we want to do is I'm going to click try it. And the reason I'm going to click try it is because that's actually going to build out our query, and it's going to be helpful for us here in a second. So for the API key, I'm just going to paste the API key that I just had. And you see when I did that, it actually created an API key query parameter, which is interesting because a lot of times the API key is set in the header. This time it's set in the query parameter. So that's cool. And now what we want to do, let's see, we have start time and end time. What else do we have? Username. So if we come down here, you see we have event type ID, which we're not going to reference. We do have the start time. We do have the end time. And then what else do we have? We have to provide an event type slug and a username. Let's back out of here really fast because there should be some information here that tells us what is required. Okay. In testing, I was able to get away with just giving it a username and an event type slug. So let's give that a shot. So first thing we're going to do is come down here and we are going to add an HTTP request. We'll name this get open slots. And this is going to be a GET request. Copying from notes here. So we're going to make a GET request to api.𝐻𝐤.com/v2/slots. And then for authentication, instead of authenticating in the query parameters, I'm going to use header authentication because in testing, I was able to use this. So I'm going to come here and create a new credential. And in here, I'm going to name it 𝐻𝐤.com YouTube. And authorization with a capital A. Very important that this part is carried out very case sensitive. So authorization with capital A, and then down here, I'm going to click the expression icon here so I can see what I'm typing. And then I'm going to type in bearer with a capital B, B-E-A-R-E-R, space, and then I'm going to paste my API key exactly as it appeared. I'm not going to capitalize anything. I'm not going to add a space after it. Just notice there is one space between bearer and cal and the API key. So we'll go ahead and save that. And the next thing I'm going to do is provide a start time. So let's come over here. And I think we were potentially looking at the wrong endpoint here because in my research, I found a different way to do this. And so I'm wondering if we're looking at the wrong way here. Find out when an event type is ready to be booked. So we have different ways to do it. Here you go. This is the way that I was looking at. So there's 4 different ways to do it. And that's why I was getting some inconsistencies here. But essentially we're going to use this method number 2, where we're providing the event type slug, we're providing the username, and then start and end as query parameters. But the API key is actually going to be provided as a header auth. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think that'll work. So let's come over here and pop back into our node. We're going to send some query parameters. And first one we're going to send is username. And that username we set earlier in the set variables appears here on the left-hand side. We're just going to drag and drop it. And then we're going to send, I think it is event type slug. So event type slug, and we're just going to drag and drop our event type slug that we set earlier. And then the next thing we're going to set is the start time, which is just start. And we set that in the node previous. So we're just going to drag and drop start. And then the next one is end. And we're just going to drag and drop end. Now, I think the only other thing we need to do is send a header with the cal API version. And let's be sure here. Yeah, so it's required. So let's come over here and copy this. Come into our HTTP node. Turn on headers. Oop, I don't want all that. We just want to set the cal API version, and I want to make sure I copy that version exactly as it appears here. Must be set to 2024-09-04, and so we'll paste that there. And let's go ahead and test this. We should get some open slots unless we mess something up. There you go. So it returned a bunch of open slots, and that's exactly what we wanted to see. Now we just need to account for sending that back to the voice API. Now, what I want to do is sometimes whenever you make this API call, just because it's successful doesn't necessarily means it returns open slots. It could be a successful API call, but nothing is in this data section. It's just see a status success, but everything inside of the data is empty. So sometimes you'll see data empty and just status success. And I don't necessarily call that a success. I want to tell Vapi that was not successful and that we don't have any open slots and they should choose something else. And so what I want to do is, let's see, let's come over here. Cool. I'm just copying something from my notes here. And so if I come over here, I'm going to add an if module and we'll name this slots available are slots. So if slots are available, if this data object, I'm going to post it in there and I'm going to come over here to object is not empty. So if the data object is not empty, meaning it has slots in there, then go down the true route. If it is empty, then go down the false route. So let's go ahead and test this and it should come down here to the true route. And it did. Okay, exactly as we expected. So what we're going to come in here and do is add a respond to webhook node, and we're going to respond with JSON. I'm going to switch this to expression, blow it up, delete this, and paste. So this right here, again, this is going to be downloadable inside of the school community, so you can just follow along. But essentially, this is the result. Inside of the Vapi documentation, whenever a tool gets called, it expects a result, and this is how you format that result. And so if we come in here, let me go ahead and delete these just so that you can see where I get these, or I get this information from. The tool call ID is essentially in that webhook that we caught. There's a tool call ID available. Let me collapse all this so you can see what I'm talking about. And so if we come down here to the body, you see we have the tool calls and we have this tool call ID. And so that's what we're looking for. I'm just going to paste that in between the quotes and you see the tool call ID has been set. And then for the result, essentially what I'm doing is coming over here to the get open slots. And I want this data object to be pasted in here. And instead of object, after data, I'm going to put a dot and I'm going to say to JSON string. And that should automatically fill out all the open slots and send it back to the voice API. And so without further ado, let's just go ahead and test this entire workflow here just so that we can make sure it works. And I shouldn't have done that. There you go. So let's go ahead and test that. Cool. So we got some open slots and we sent back this information to Vapi, even though Vapi wasn't listening just yet because it didn't ask for it. We just did some testing. Now, I want to rename this respond to webhook, and let's call this slots available. But now what I want to do is copy this and paste it. And then I'm going to bring it down here just in case there were no slots available. And let's rename this to slots not available. And then let's pop this open. And instead of providing the JSON results here, I'm just going to respond with like natural language here. I'm going to put quotes, double quotes, and say there were no open slots. Try selecting another day, time. And so if no open slots were found, then we're going to respond with a phrase saying that there was no open slots, try selecting another day. We're essentially messaging Vapi and saying, hey, try again with another date and time. So now if we make a test call, we should be able to see this work all the way through. And so let's go ahead and unpin this data so that we can receive a new webhook and listen for new events. Let's come back in here and let's make a test call. Make sure our tools are in here. Yep.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin, and I'd like to book an appointment for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Do you guys have any open slots?
Could you please provide your email address and time zone so I can check the available slots for your appointment?
Yeah, my email address is justin@example.com, and I'm in the Eastern Standard Time Zone.
Hold on a sec. It seems there are no available slots for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Let me suggest...
Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly why that happened, and that's because inside of our webhook, we didn't change this response from what we had immediately. So we actually want to respond using the respond to webhook node. So we're going to go ahead and click that, make that change, and then let's listen again and make that call. I'm just going to give the voice AI agent all the information so we can speed up the call here.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin. My email is justin@example.com, and I'm on the Eastern Time Zone. I want to see if you guys have any open slots for tomorrow at 2 p.m.
This'll just take a sec. Unfortunately, there are no available slots tomorrow at 2 p.m. However, I can offer you two alternative times. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Would you like to book one of these slots?
That's interesting. I asked for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and you just told me that it wasn't available, but then you told me it was available.
I apologize for the confusion. You are right. There is an available slot tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Would you like to book that slot?
All right, cool. So I don't know what happened there. It probably had issues reading. So if you notice here, the data comes back. Let's see. Let's go back to the executions. It comes back in Zulu time. And so what we might be able to do here is pass in the time zone parameter inside of the API call. So if we come over here and we pass in, let's see if it allows. Yeah, time zones. Yeah, here we go. So I bet if we did this, time zones in which the available slots should be returned, let's provide that because we have that information, and I think that will help clear up the translation. So let's go ahead and add that, and then we're going to test again. It's a little bit tedious, but I think it's important to do this. So let's add parameter time zone with a capital Z, and let's see. I don't have the data available. Let me actually pop this open here and pin some data so we can work with it. Cool. Pop in here. We have time zone. Let's go to the webhook and provide this time zone. Cool. So if we test this, let's stop this from running. Let's try to test this to see if it returns it in the time zone we requested. And there you go. It does return it in the time zone that we requested. So let's go ahead and try that test call one more time because I want to see that work. Click save here. Let's unpin this data.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin. My email is justin@example.com, and I'm in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'd like to see if you have any appointments available for tomorrow at 2 p.m.
This'll just take a sec. Great news, Justin. We have available slots for tomorrow at 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m., and...
All right, super important to test that because we actually got the result we wanted, so I feel comfortable with this. Now, the next thing we need to build out is actually booking the appointment, and it's pretty simple, actually. So if the book appointment tool is going to get called, which is later on in the conversation, if I would have said, yes, go ahead and book my 2 o'clock, it would go down this book appointment route. So all we need to do here is we're going to create another API call for book appointment. And so I have some notes here on the side. Let's go ahead and create another HTTP request. And let's rename this to book appointment. And this is actually going to be a post method. And we're going to copy this over here. So api.cal.com/v2 bookings/ or v2 / bookings. And then for authentication, generic header authentication. And then we already set the credential earlier, so we can just select it from our list, 𝐻𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬. And for headers, we do need to, let's go ahead and pop this open and let's look for booking appointments. I think it's down here at the bottom. Let's see, slots. No, we don't want to see slots. Event, create an event type. Nope. Slots, schedules. Bear with me. Calendars. There you go. Create a booking. So here's the documentation here. And so let's go ahead and click try it just so that we have the information we need. So we were looking for this earlier and you could see it over here. The reason I like using the try it section is you can actually fill this stuff out and you can essentially build out your query and then just copy and paste it inside of the N8N node. And actually we can create this entire node from the query itself that we make inside of this API section. So if we wanted to come over here, we can say paste over, yeah, let's try doing that. Let's paste over the start and end times over here. So I'm going to copy that start time and provide it right there. And this says that you need it formatted in UTC time zone. In my testing, it doesn't matter. If you pass in the time zone, it's going to honor it. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to type in my name. And then for the time zone, let's pop open, I think it was America, New York, email address. Funny thing is, it doesn't say email address is required, but in testing, it was required. And that's just inconsistencies in API documentation. That's why testing is important. Sometimes what they say is required and what's actually required can be two different things. Here, what we're going to do for username, I do think we need to provide it with the event type. Yeah. So if you come up here, it pretty much tells us that we need to provide it with either the event type ID or the slug in the username. And we're going to do option 2, slug in the username, because we already know how to do it that way. So let's go to event type slug is 30 minutes or 30 min, and then lead-brain is the event type. And then location type, see this says required, it's not. I guess if you set location, it would be required. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this all the way down to the close squiggly bracket, copy that, go back into my workflow. As a matter of fact, I'm going to test this for you. Let's delete this node. I'm curious. I might be creating more work for us right here. But I'm going to go ahead and make an HTTP request. Let's rename this book appointment. And if I come inside here and just copy this curl command, I should be able to import curl and paste it in here, and it should build it out for me. So let's see if it actually does that. It doesn't look like it did it. Let me save really fast and refresh. N8N can be buggy sometimes. All right, let's come in here, import curl, paste it, and import. There you go. So refresh fixed it. So here, it looks like it created it for us, which is awesome. We're going to come over here and replace all this stuff with actual variables. But before we do that, let's come and add our authentication. We'll say generic header and then select our 𝐻𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬 YouTube credential. We have our API version that was automatically filled out and then our JSON body that was filled out in here. And so what I want to do is, before we do this, we don't actually have the input that's provided here. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to make a call. I'm going to tell it to book the appointment so that we have some input data to work with. But I'm going to disconnect this node in the meantime, just so that we have data to work with. So let's go ahead and save and test workflow. And I didn't mean to click publish. Let's talk to the assistant.
How can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin, and my email is justin@example.com, and I'm in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'd like to book a call for tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Just a sec. Just a sec. Your appointment has been successfully set for tomorrow, April 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Let me know if there's anything.
Okay, interesting. I think I just didn't start it in time because it actually didn't even try to book the appointment. So I'm curious. All right, I'm going to try to make that call a little bit different because we're still trying to build out this workflow. So let's come in here and talk to the assistant.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin. My email is justin@example.com. I'm in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'd like to know if you have any open slots for tomorrow.
One moment. I have several open slots available for tomorrow. Here are some options. 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m., 10 a.m., 10:30
Hey,
a.m.
can I book
Ele-
the 9:30 a.m., please?
This'll just take a sec. Your appointment has been successful.
There you go. All right. So I just wanted to catch it. I think in the last call, I wasn't listening because I have to click test workflow manually because we're in test mode, but I didn't catch that book appointment workflow or tool call. So there it is. We have it down here. It's now providing us with some information so we can build out this API call. So let's come in here. Let me see if this language is a required field. I don't think it is. And if it is not, yeah, I don't think it is. We'll leave it there. I don't think it'll hurt anything. So for name, I'm actually going to come in here and let's change this to expression. Pop this open. For name, I'm going to delete Justin and come down to our webhook and pull the variable that has the name located in it. And then let's remove the time zone and pull the variable that has time zone, put it in between the quotes. Same with the email. Awesome. And then same with the start time. And we'll do the same with the event type slug, which is located in the set variables. And same with the username that's located inside of the set variables node. Cool. So if I do this and I test it, it should actually create the appointment. So let's book it. Let's see what happens. Oh, cool. Success. Looks like it books the appointment. So let's come in here and make sure that's actually true. So let's look at our bookings. And here we go. So we have this booking for today or tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Cool. I'm going to cancel this event for now just because I want to do some more testing. And let's come over here and we're going to do the same sort of evaluation with the if statement here, except what'll happen here is if we don't create the booking successfully, it'll actually respond with an error. And so to take advantage of those errors, there's a setting inside of the HTTP node that we can actually set, and that is settings on error, continue using error output. So if we do that, it'll create an if statement within the node. And if we test this all the way, we had a successful booking. And so I'll come over here and what we'll do is we'll copy one of these and connect it. We'll name this booking success. And then checking my notes here just to make sure. Cool. So over here in the result, instead of passing in data, we're just going to remove that double quote. We can just say booking successful in the result, period. Now, if the booking wasn't successful, we can just copy that node, connect it, and we'll say booking not successful. And we're just going to tell Vapi, hey, that booking wasn't successful. Let's pop this open. Booking not successful. Cool. Maybe we could suggest trying another date or time. if you wanted to, you could pipe the actual data that comes back in the results. For example, I'm going to try to book the same appointment now twice and see what happens so you could see the kind of response we get from that webhook. I'm sorry, from that API call, and you could potentially give that information to Vapi so it can better tell the caller exactly what it needs to do. So let's go ahead and save this and let's run this workflow. As a matter of fact, let's pin this data and then let's test this workflow one more time. And it should create an appointment for us. There it is. So if I come in here, I should have an appointment now. And I'm going to try to book that same appointment again by just testing the workflow again, see what happens. Cool. So we actually got an error. If we pop over here, it shows we have an error and then we have the error message. So it might be useful to pass in this error message as a string. And yeah, we're not going to get crazy. If you wanted to, you can pass in this error message as a string, but we're going to leave it as it is right here. Let's go ahead and turn this workflow on. I'm going to organize this so it looks better. And let's turn this workflow on. And in order to do that, we're actually going to be hitting the production URL for the webhook. And so if I come over here to production, I'm just going to copy this, go into Vapi, go to my tools, and we're just going to replace this test URL with the production URL. So let's save that, go back to open slots and do the same for open slots and save that. Let's go back to our assistants where we want to test, back to our workflow, make sure we activate it. And now we should be able to see our executions come here in the execution history. So let's make a test call and see if we can successfully book an appointment.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin. My email is justin@example.com, and I'd like to book an appointment for tomorrow.
One moment. Hi, Justin. I have several available slots for tomorrow, April 16th. Here are some options: 9 a.m., 10 a.m.
Hey, I'll take the 10 a.m.
Hold on a sec. Your appointment has been successfully booked for tomorrow, April 16th, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Let me know if you need any further assistance.
Hey, can I book another appointment for tomorrow at 10 a.m.?
You already have an appointment scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Would you like to book another time slot?
No, can you try booking the 10 a.m. again tomorrow, please?
Unfortunately, you already have an appointment at...
It's too smart. I was trying to fool it. I wanted it to go down the failure route and see what happened. But I'm actually going to call one last time, and I'm going to ask for the 10 a.m. slot tomorrow, and let's see what happens.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Justin. My email is justin@example.com. I'm on the Eastern Standard Time Zone, and I'd like to book an appointment for tomorrow at 10 a.m.
It looks like there's a typo in the email address you provided. Could you please confirm your email address so I can proceed with checking the availability for your appointment?
justin@example.com.
Thanks for clarifying. I'll check the availability for an appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. in your time zone, Eastern Standard Time. One moment, please. Give me a moment. Unfortunately, the 10 a.m. slot on April 16th is not available. However, the closest available times are 10:30 a.m.
Hey, would you mind trying to book the 10 a.m. anyway?
I can check for openings at 10 a.m. again, but I cannot book an appointment if the slot is unavailable.
That's pretty cool. So I can't even try to fool it here, and I'm not going to sit here on the call with an AI assistant trying to make it do what it doesn't want to do. So that is all. Thank you for staying with me. If you made it this long, I think it's very important to show this entire process, even if it's not as elegant as it may seem. If you're building this out for your business or for a client, you'll be going through this same sort of iterative testing, and I think it's important for me to show it live. Now, I've been beating appointment booking to death lately because it is a super research topics and people mess it up all the time. And so I want to make sure that I myself get as much practice as possible, but that you also get practice, and I can also provide you with these resources. So in Automation Station community, this will be available. I'll go ahead and export this. I'll also export the JSON that I use to create the tools inside of Vapi. And till next time, see ya. Peace.